Usually when we do workshops, there's more people here, huh?
Couple more.
Yeah.
So maybe that's going to come back soon. What do you think?
Yes.
Hope so.
Yeah,
I love workshops.
me too. So maybe we'll have a special announcement tonight about when the next in-office live workshop is.
Yes.
Ooh, foreshadowing.
Maybe,
Takes you back to high school English.
maybe, just maybe. All right, the clock struck 5:30. This is Ask Me Anything, and we've got the docs here, all of them. And we have your questions. I've got your questions that you submitted. And if you have more questions, then what you do is I can see right here your questions. So you ask your questions, and we'll see if we can get to them. I saw Belinda already said hello, so hi, Belinda.
Hey, Belinda.
Hi, Belinda.
And we're gonna get to your questions that you submitted first. And one of the first questions that we got that we want to answer right away is there's 4 of us up here. Who are you?
I'm the 4th one.
You're the 4th one. They
Yes.
said the question was that they asked, who's the new doctor?
Yes. I'm the new doctor. My name is Tracy, so Dr. Tracy. I started here in the clinic. My first introduction to Indy Family Chiropractic was actually as a CA. So I was here several years ago.
Hang on, what's a CA?
Oh, chiropractic assistant. I was one of the girls at the front desk.
Got it.
And so some of you might recognize me, familiar face. But I went to school and graduated and came back, and now I'm a doctor, get to serve with these wonderful gentlemen here.
How long did that take you? Like 6 months to get that certification in chiropractic? Or
Oh, yeah, it was-
how's that work?
It was real quick. No, I moved to Atlanta and I lived there for 4 years to finish my doctorate, and then
Whoa.
moved back to Indiana.
Takes 4 years to be a chiropractor, huh?
That's the doctor education. There was undergrad before that, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, you don't know how many times people ask that question to me, and you guys, a lot of you are patients and understand this, but like, you guys ever get this? Like,
Oh, yeah.
how long does it take? How long
Yeah.
did it take to get your certification in chiropractic?
Oh, yeah.
It's like
Right.
the certification, the doctorate that it took an extra 4 years after undergrad, so like 8.
Not like 8, exactly 8 actually, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's answer the next question. How about this one? I'm going to direct this one to Dr. Scott Robinson. Why does my back crack when I get adjusted?
I actually really like this one, and people have to ask it pretty often. I think there's a misconception that maybe the bones are rubbing together or like grating together or something like that. But there's actually a joint capsule around every joint, and inside there's some fluid. And when you hear that cracking sound, it's literally just gas bubbles kind of just breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
And so nitrogen specifically, but it's not the bones rubbing together. You can rest assured on that.
With an adjustment, does it have to crack in order for the adjustment to happen?
Absolutely not. And so we see that a lot with instrumentation type adjusting, but you can see it with a manual adjustment where you don't hear anything. That's part of the reason why we recheck the joint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I noticed, because when I moved into this practice here, I moved from a lot of the heavy-handed manual adjusting to a lot more of the instrument adjusting, and what I've found incredible over the years is how the changes are just so much better than what I used to see when I was in practice before.
Mhm.
And it's with way more instrument adjusting and way less hand adjusting.
Well, it's more precise.
Yeah.
Yeah, more precise, and also what I've seen over the years is using more instrumentation. It's more predictable. The changes,
Absolutely.
changes on an X-ray, precision, but then you can see it over time. Is how you can actually predict what's going to happen with that person, way more than manual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, manual's needed for a lot though. We need to adjust manually, but again, there's nothing wrong with the instrument.
Yeah, it also allows for better continuity of care between different practitioners. Obviously, like Dr. Scott giving a manual adjustment is going to be different than me giving a manual adjustment.
Mhm.
But when we all use the same instrument and we all use the same lines and angles and off of your individual x-rays, it
Mhm.
allows a lot more consistency there.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Well, that brings me to another question. I'm going to come back to Dr. Scott on this one. Why does it feel like doctors adjust differently?
That's a perfect segue.
It
I
was.
love it. Nice, you just kind of teed it right up. Part of it is there's a philosophy, there's a science, there's an art to chiropractic. And so even if we're all adjusting the same joint, adjusting it in the same way, there's a different interpretation from one doctor to the next. I've got these big old hands here. Dr. Wilson, maybe?
I'm not putting up my hands up. Those paws.
So everybody's like, obviously we have different body types up here. We've got men, we've got women. Everybody's going to be able to do things just a little bit differently. And as you go through and as you get experience, you learn to adjust for your body type and for your style. And so I think that's really where a lot of that comes from. But that's part of that art, in my opinion.
Yeah, same intentions, same angles, and same exact approach, but it's gonna feel like different hands between anyone adjusting you.
Well, because they are.
Because they are different hands. And I actually tell people when I'm adjusting the very first time, I say, so when I adjust you, it's gonna feel a lot different than when Dr. Scott adjusts you. Same intentions, same angles in same approach, but it's gonna feel different on your end. It's going to from doctor to doctor. But that's one of the things I love about our practice is that we have literally 4 sets of eyes on our patients at any given time. So I was just talking to chiropractic students about this here recently, how 4 sets of eyes on people as you go throughout care. I feel like we provide so much better quality of care than when I first opened this practice. It was just me. It's so much better quality of care now, not just with continuity, but because there's 4 sets of eyes and we have our discussions and we're analyzing patients, whether they are progressing like we expected or not progressing, and we have these discussions and we collaborate, and it's a full wraparound care. And you bring in Dr. Phil Harris, who's our naturopath, who brings in some of the nutrition perspective, and it's like, yeah, this is way better care than just like one set of eyes, one brain who's analyzing and thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you took it right away. I was going to say the exact same thing. There's so much value there when it comes to having 4 sets of eyes, 4 sets of hands, 4 different ways of maybe viewing the situation. And then the other part of that is the collaboration that comes in. Like think about it this way. You go and see your primary care medical doctor and they recommend that you do option A, whatever that may be, and you decide you wanted a second opinion. Well, how quickly do you really think you can get a second opinion? Like to get a doctor's appointment right now, that's not quick.
I don't want one.
Yeah, but in this office, to get a second opinion, it's pretty much like as simple as, hey Dr. Tracy, what do you think about this? So there's so much value there.
That's good. Why don't you adjust where it hurts? I love this question. This is one of the questions that were submitted. And again, hey guys, I see you commenting out there and love this. Hey, any questions that you have? Hey, maybe it's something we're talking about will spur a train of thought for yourself. You're like, hey, I've always wondered this. Now would be the time. And it's really ask me anything. So this was dangerous because we said anything.
We knew ahead of time.
Yeah, so anything means that. So why don't you adjust where it hurts? And I'm going to take this one because there's 2 different approaches in healthcare. There's palliative care and there's corrective care. And it's the same in chiropractic. There's 2 different approaches. There's palliative care and there's corrective care. And we've been very intentional about not chasing symptoms, because if we chase symptoms, what happens is we start going down this rabbit hole that ends up going nowhere. And the challenge is a problem that you have here might actually be caused by something up here. And just as an example, I brought the whiteboard out, but I'm not even going to use it. I just want you to picture if my neck looks like this, okay, so I'm tilted like this, okay, I might feel a lot of problems over here, but the adjustment's actually going to happen here. And so the question is, what do we really want? Do we want correction, or do we want to chase this over here without any plan of attack in mind for the future? And what happens is, and I've been a part of palliative care in school, that's what the vast majority of chiropractors are taught, and we were in school together, is to really do that. But if there's no plan of attack for the future, and there's no real way of making sure that you're on the right track and re-x-raying and any of these things, well then you're just going to be chasing your tail. And it's a lifetime of doing that. And so we just really commit to developing a plan, sticking to the plan, and redirecting when necessary. So that's why we take re-x-rays and there's re-examinations to find out hey, what are some of the things that you're on track with and off track with, and how do we course correct? But really, it's stick to the plan. Don't chase our tails. Don't chase the symptoms. Stick to the plan.
Yeah, and you know, I couldn't agree more. But since I've gotten this question before, maybe I'll play devil's advocate just a little bit, because the question I got is it too much to ask for both? Like, is that too much to ask for?
How do you answer?
Well, my answer to that is no, it's not too much to ask for, but sometimes the challenge with that is because healing takes time. And we know that healing takes time. The histology of cells shows that healing takes time. We have to respect that the timeline of healing might be different than what we want it to be.
And if we, let's say, go back to the neck example. So this is, if I'm walking around like this, okay, and and we know, adjust here and help to redirect and rebalance and some body weighting and things. Actually, what research shows, if I actually go into this side and I start adjusting, even though it hurts here, and I adjust over here by chasing symptoms, that can actually do more harm than good by doing that.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what you want.
It's the exact opposite. So you might feel better, but I actually, knowing what we know, it's almost a disservice to the patient to chase that symptom, and actually knowing that we're actually doing something that's going to cause them not to get the care that they deserve. And so, that's why it's so important to, when you are being adjusted, when I'm adjusted, I make sure that doctor who's adjusting me has my x-rays up and knows the angles to adjust me. I only get adjusted by those who are certified in spinal correction. I only get adjusted by those who are max living doctors. I only get adjusted by those people. It's not because I'm around them the most. I'm around other chiropractors, but if I'm in a room full of chiropractors, which I was here just recently, I'm choosing the max living doctor because I know the training that they've gone through. I know their understanding. I also know their intention of why they're adjusting me. Okay, next question. How'd you get such beautiful teeth? Yep, that was asked. That was a question that was asked.
I think that was probably for Dr. Tracy.
That's what I think too.
What? Well, my parents paid a lot of money for my teeth, so I hope they're beautiful.
Right, yeah.
That's funny. I really think Dr. So might have put that question in, our dentist. So, the reason why that we have such beautiful teeth is because of Dr. So. You can find her at Mass Ave Family Dentistry. That's the reason why, right? So shameless plug for our biological dentist, holistic dentist. She'll take out the fillings, the mercury fillings in your mouth, etc. And we got a new question coming in. Talisha, you want to ask it?
Yes, Zane asked, do you guys really sleep on those logs?
Oh my gosh.
Can I?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
Zane, I start that way every night, okay? I don't wake up that way every morning. But at the very least, I start that way, very intentional with the roll under my neck, roll under my lower back in order to, and here's why, because it's a molding effect. When you lay on that overnight, it's a molding effect and it's creating the curve and it's tightening the ligaments into the desired position. So while, yes, I start there, I don't always end up there. And I've actively been working on this. How long have I been here? 2 years. I've been actively working on this, and I still don't sleep all the way through the night with that.
And I tell patients all the time, you can't control what happens when you fall asleep. Like you start in a certain position, you do the best you can. If you roll over, you can't control that. If you figure out how to control that, let me know.
Right.
But you start in the right position, you do the best you can. At some point, maybe you'll wake up in the same position. I know patients that do it all the time. It takes time.
Yeah.
So, not everyone can sleep like a dead person, right? And that's the reality.
Or like a mummy.
Like a mummy. I like that. And so, if you end up on your side, I would much rather you take the rolls out and use a pillow on your side than
Absolutely.
laying like that on your side all night.
Yeah, you don't want to mold your neck. That's what the rolls do. Remember that. The rolls mold your spine into that position. So if you're laying on your side and you put a roll this way here, it's going to cause your head to tip over and you're going to maybe create an angle in your spine that you don't want.
That's the last thing we want.
Yeah.
So I would much rather you just take it out after 20 minutes than sleep on it sideways. Is that your thought?
Yeah. So when I started as a patient, I was super frustrated by not being able to sleep on my rolls. But You just keep working at it. Consistency is key. It took me 3 months before I was ever even able to fall asleep on the soft ones, but it will happen. It works in conjunction with you coming in, getting adjusted more, restoring those curves back. It will get more comfortable. But yeah, even still, what is it, 5 years, 6 years later, I don't sleep the whole night on my rolls either. Most often I find them across the room because I threw them across the room in the middle of the night. But yeah, you do the best you can. You go as long as you can.
Or are those sleepers, huh?
Apparently.
All right. So this is ask me, us, any of us, anything. And anything is the key word there. And there's questions coming in. And hi, Laura. I saw you're on there. I'm going to go with one of the questions that you submitted earlier, not Laura, but specifically, but a question that was submitted. And this is going to be to Dr. Alcorn.
Okay.
Where do you get your shoes?
Oh.
How do you choose your shoes?
Yeah.
Is barefoot better? They feel the best sometimes. That was the question that was submitted.
Okay. So choosing shoes is, the answer is it depends, right? It depends on what the activity is for. Obviously, you want to make sure that you have support, make sure that your feet are protected. Depending on what you're doing, right? Like all these things matter. But what it also boils down, and we have to remember how complex the foot really is. There's 26 bones in each foot. There's 33 joints in each foot. There's 200,000 nerve endings in each foot. Our feet make up a quarter of our skeleton. 25% of all the bones in our body are just in our feet. So it's meant for a lot of motion. This is my point. If we think about our hand, there's a similar, I think maybe 22 bones in our hand. And look how, dexterous our hands are. Our feet need to be able to move. So the answer is sometimes a barefoot shoe would be better. But if your feet aren't ready for that, then that can be problems. Do you remember when the barefoot finger shoes became really popular? You guys remember that? I think that was when we were in chiropractic school, is when they became really popular, maybe 8 or so years ago. And about 4 years ago, there was this huge lawsuit, this massive lawsuit against Vibram, which is the company that created the bottom of those feet, because the shoes were billed as a health solution. They would help that with back pain. They would help with foot pain. Because people used them when they were not ready to use them, guess what they created? They created back pain. They created foot pain. This was like a $400 million lawsuit against this company. So our feet are very sensitive. They're designed to be very sensitive. The 200,000 nerve endings, it's our interaction with the world, right? That's the only, when we're standing, that's the only part of our anatomy that's interacting with the world that we're on, that we're in. So we have to make sure that we have good support, but we can't have too little support if we need it.
So going barefoot, so one of the things you hear about grounding quite a bit, and barefoot, and just being able to touch and grab and squeeze. We do have those little intrinsic muscles in our feet. Intrinsic just means the little muscles in our feet, and they're supposed to be used. But if we have hard shoes on all the time and we're not interacting with the earth, we never get utilization of those intrinsic muscles, and that's when you see people end up getting flatter feet. That's why, especially kiddos, if you have kids at home, put them barefoot as much as possible, especially indoors. They need to be barefoot as much as possible. Getting out in the grass, making sure there's no nails or anything, but getting out in the grass and being barefoot, I mean, it's so stinking essential.
So important.
And yet it's so often done. And then we wonder why our kids have flat feet and underdeveloped knees and things like that. And it works its way all the way up. The reason why this matters is because your feet affect your knees, which affect your hips, which affect your sacrum, and then it affects a subluxation pattern. It can actually start at the feet. It's one of the reasons why we've introduced scanning of the feet in a corrected position to analyze and see that for people. And so a lot of people don't even know that's an option or availability to scan the feet and see where there's problems, so they can have a custom orthotic for the corrected foot position. Most people don't know that.
I love our foot scanner. Over the years I've used lots of different foot scanners. I've been exposed to different foot scanning technology just because of what Dr. Wilson, what you were just talking about, how integral it is to have a good foundation. And I really think that was the essence of the question, is trying to make sure that we have a good foundation that we're supported on. But our foot scanner, do you remember that little toy when we're growing up that has all the push pins that you like stick your hand into and you turn it around and you see the imprint of
Or your
hand?
face.
Yeah, or your face, or
I was a face guy.
your face, okay,
Yeah.
like an ear, right? But that's actually what our foot scanner does. And then on top of that, there's state-of-the-art technology where it reads it digitally with a camera. And so then we can actually create a 3D map of the bottom of the foot in the base position and then compare that against a corrected position. And this is the huge difference, because like you go to the, Doc in the Box foot store over here, and they're gonna do a flat scan where you step on the scanner, it's a 2D picture. Or the one over like CVS right over here, that's a 2-dimensional picture. That's not showing the nuances and the intricacies of the foot. But when you have the arch that you're able to measure against where it is versus where it should be, then you can actually see, does a person maybe need a custom-made orthotic? Are the muscles that support the feet, like you mentioned, are they so weak that they're not supporting the structure at all? And maybe that is a person who, maybe they do need some custom orthotics.
So the question of where do you get your shoes? They weren't just asking because they thought you had nice shoes.
I don't know.
It might have been.
Who knows? Who knows?
But you do have nice shoes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Before we leave the feet though, talking about grounding, being barefoot, it's so much more than even just biomechanic growth of your body, but especially with kids, super important to have them be barefoot as much as possible from a neurodevelopmental aspect as well, because you develop, proprioception is the scientific word, but awareness of where your feet are in space. And just like how you can touch your arm and you can know that something is touching you, kids develop that through their feet, through feeling the earth and different surfaces, and that stimulates the brain and causes it to develop at a faster rate. So super important for kids, super important for even adults too, because a lot of times we see people get to be in elderly ages and they lose the ability to have awareness of where they're moving in space, where their feet are touching the ground. So the earlier you can start that development in life, the better you're going to be.
That's great. I love that. Bring in so what most people don't realize, Dr. Tracy is actually a specialist with kids and pregnancies, and so pregnant moms. So I love that perspective. Belinda asks, how much does the foot scan cost? Do you want to handle that one?
Yeah. So there's actually no cost on the foot scan itself. The scan itself
for current patients.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry. It's really just a screening tool to try to identify are there mechanical flaws? Are there things that need to be addressed? And the reality is that when we scan people, not everybody shows that they would then need like a corrective orthotic. But that's a big part of understanding the diagnostic process, the assessment process is you look at different things to see, is this a problem area for a person, yes or no, and then move forward based on that.
That's good. And then if they do have problems, what is like a general cost of custom orthotics?
Yeah, so custom orthotic cost in this office is $400.
Yeah. So, Belinda, hopefully that answers your question. They're saying that our audio, I see you guys mess with the audio, so let's speak up a little bit because they're not getting everything right now.
Oh,
so,
okay.
We have 2 other questions.
Let's go with the 2 other questions. So I know you can't hear Talisha right now, but she's about to ask
But
some
you're gonna
questions.
repeat. You're
Yes.
gonna repeat.
I'll repeat your question.
So, are there recommended exercises when in the swimming pool?
Okay. Do you want me to answer? Okay. The question was, are there recommended exercises while in the swimming pool? And so that's going to be very difficult to say just flat out, like these are exercises that you could do in a swimming pool. However, there are some basic things that you can do to strengthen your body while in the swimming pool. One of them is just basic squats. I was just at my mom's house. She has a swimming pool, and because I was a personal trainer, and she knows that I did a little bit of group exercise instruction, and so she begged me to do some group exercise instruction from the pool. So she begged me. She got these weights. And Mom, I hope you're watching. And so she got these weights. They're like these foam weights, and you can do you've seen these things. You push against the resistance and everything.
Yeah.
I felt like so in my element, like taking my mom through the group exercise instruction in the swimming pool. It's so cool. But there's lots of things you can do. Come to find out. So many things. Squats, treading water is difficult for some, more difficult for some than others, believe it or not. Using those weights, if you get those foam weights and you just do extensions, you're working the posterior part of your arm. There's lots of things that you can do. Just even actually doing full extensions like this and bringing them back in with the weights just slightly underwater, going back and forth, be really helpful. Running, and we used to run in just and not that deep of water, so like 3 to 4 feet in water.
Like right at your waist.
Running. Yeah. And if you want to have a blast, put a bunch of people in the pool, get it going one way, just all start running, get the circulation going, and then stop and try going the other direction. There's, like I said, there's a lot of things you can do in a swimming pool.
Pro tip on that one, if you choose to run in a pool, please put something on your feet. Don't run barefoot. It's going to be like hamburger meat on the bottom of your feet, running on that scratchy, I've experienced. I'm speaking from experience. Put some water shoes on there, whatever.
That's awesome.
I love the pro tip.
Second question.
Let's hear it.
Going from exercise to rest.
Yes.
Is it okay to sleep with something underneath your knees?
Okay, so sleeping with something underneath your knees. Who wants to answer that question?
I'll jump on this one. Personally, just as a blanket statement, obviously if looking at your spine it may be different, but just as a blanket statement, I don't love things underneath the knees. It tends to flatten out the lumbar spine, and especially if you are sleeping with your rolls. I don't know that I would want something under my knees and have the roll under the spine. They're kind of fighting against each other there. Anybody else have something to throw in on that?
My opinion on that one is because when we sleep, what do we want to be? We want to be comfortable so we can fall asleep.
Yeah.
I mean, is that fair? So then really the question is, why is there a need to have something under the knees? Because there's a need for additional comfort. To me, it actually is signaling that there may be some problems in the lower back, that there may be some problems in maybe the middle back that are still existing, maybe in the hips, in order to get tension off of the spinal cord, that you have to bend up the knees so that it feels comfortable enough to sleep. Mm-hmm. So I agree with Dr. Scott. I guess my position is that it's possible that it could be signaling of something else going on in your spine that needs to be addressed.
That's right.
Totally agree. The body's always telling you something.
Yeah.
That's right. Meeting with people out in the community, sometimes that's something that they don't get when it comes to that having to sleep with something under your legs is a warning sign that there's an underlying issue there that really needs to be addressed and a plan of attack for it. So next question, what does the vibration plate do? And I will direct this one to Dr. Tracy.
Yeah, the vibration plate, it's super fun. It's awesome because it really just stimulates the musculoskeletal system and the nervous system at the exact same time. So after you get adjusted, you go to the vibration plate, and that is the time where you are retraining your muscles and your ligaments to hold the position of the adjustment that you got. The moment you step on that vibration plate and it starts vibrating, your brain sends signals down your spinal cord, out over your nerves to your muscles to tell them that this is the position we need to hold. Vibration plate is not a new thing. A lot of athletes actually use it to retrain their muscles to get them conditioned because it's another level of muscle strengthening. Vibration plates also have a lot of benefits for things like improving lymph flow and blood pressure, circulation, all of that. But primarily in this office, we use it for retraining muscles and ligaments.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what separates really corrective care, so what you see in a Max Living clinic versus just traditional wellness or traditional chiropractic is the idea of retraining muscles and ligaments for long-term stability, long-term correction over time. Because if we don't retrain the ligaments and we don't retrain the muscles, and we're not intentional about doing home exercises, well, then the underlying issues are still going to be problematic. Now, will they be less because you're getting adjusted? Yeah, probably. But what's our real goal here is to really retrain.
Yeah.
And so the idea is you do that right after the adjustment. You do that as quickly as possible right after the adjustment. And some people, you'll notice, have different weights. Like some people just wear head weights. Some people you'll see wear body weights or cross body weights. Those are specifically, and if you haven't had a cross body weight or a hip weight assigned directly to you, it just means that you probably don't need that. And the caveat is yet. You probably don't need that yet. But many people you'll see have different patterns because that's their what's called a subluxation pattern. Remember, if you're not familiar with that term, it's when the spine shifts out of its normal position, causes pressure on the nerves, and wherever that nerve goes is going to be affected. Whether we feel that or not, that needs to be addressed. And so you'll see different patterns when it comes to the vibration plate.
Yeah, the body weights, those are one of my most favorite things that we do here, and they're so cool because what they do is they create reflexes in your spine. So we have all these.
In case you want a prop.
Beautiful. So we have all these tiny little muscles on our spine, and they are what we are supporting. They are what we are actually retraining. We're trying to build the strength of those muscles, and those are not really muscles that you can consciously turn on. Like if somebody says to make a bicep and flex, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can turn that muscle on, and that's really easy to know exactly which muscle you're turning on. But if we were to ask quick, turn on the stability muscles of your middle spine. What? Yeah, it's like you can't really do that, and that's exactly what the body weights do, is they cause a reflex of the muscles that retrain a better position and retrain those muscles to be strong in that new corrected position.
That's good. One of the questions that we got most frequently when we asked you to ask me anything was, can chiropractic help with, and I'm just going to list all of the questions that we got: type 1 diabetes, hot flashes, 2 times on hot flashes, people. Ringing in the ears, menopause, hormones, allergies, asthma, difficulty pregnancies, and erectile dysfunction. 2 times on that one. And so we got a lot of questions on, can chiropractic help with X? And the reality is that chiropractic is amazing for removing the interference in the nervous system to allow the body to function at its absolute best. And I want to read you something. This is from the developer of chiropractic, who is BJ Palmer. And I want you to just hear this whole thing because I think this applies directly to this question. And he's talking to chiropractors here when he says this. He says, we chiropractors work with the subtle substance of the soul. What does that mean? He's talking about the fact that the brain sends messages through the spinal cord out through the nerves. It goes to every single organ, every single cell, every single tissue. These bones surround and protect the brainstem, the spinal cord, and the nerves. And so what he's saying is we work with the subtle substance of the soul because your body runs on energy. It runs on electricity. And so understanding that, he says, we release the imprisoned impulse, the tiny rivulet of force that emanates from the mind and flows over the nerves to the cells and stirs them into life. He says, we deal with the magic power that transforms common food into living, loving, thinking clay that robes the earth with beauty and hues and scents the flowers with the glory of the air.
Man, I could just listen to that guy forever.
It was written in the 50s. So just, but here's what he says that I think is directly applicable here. He said, and yet you ask, can chiropractic cure appendicitis or the flu? I'll add in, or erectile dysfunction. Have you more faith in a knife or a spoonful of medicine than the power that animates the living world?
Yes.
Who are we to say, no, that cannot help with, or yes, it can help with? When you remove the interference within the body and you allow the nervous system to work optimally, we see some of the craziest things happen.
Yeah.
And it's unreal when we can't like report a lot of these things happening because we don't want to take credit for that which the body is doing or God is doing or whatever miraculous thing is happening within the body. But we hear some crazy things, and we hear one patient said, ever since I've started getting adjusted, I've noticed my toenails and fingernails grow so much faster. There was no special adjustment for toenails and fingernails, right? And you hear about spontaneous remission of things happening, and you hear about people who were diagnosed with lumps in the breast and no longer have lumps. Was chiropractic a cure for lumps in the breast? The answer to that is no. But when you remove the interference in the nervous system and you support it with the essentials, well, who's to say what the body is able to do when it's functioning and working optimally? The body works best when there's no interference. So the goal really should be, let's remove the interference, let the body work at its best. And yes, we've got hundreds of testimonials for people who have reported relief and resolve with some of those things that were listed right there. But I never want to purport to say that we did that. No, that was the body doing it. And when the body's functioning at its absolute best, well, that's when these things tend to happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I say it all the time, but if we go down to the morgue, like they let us in the morgue and we start adjusting dead people, they don't get up off the table. Like they don't get up, they don't do anything different. The power that's inside of them is no longer there. And so we get to look good because we work with the power that animates life. And when you remove the interference, your body gets better. And so it's not something that we're necessarily doing. It's your body's getting back to what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's almost like the body has this wish to be well. You know.
Well, it was its design to be well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about this. Because we can say designed to be well, and that's whether belief or not, because we could go to the top of this building, we could all hold hands, right? Lock arms, and we could all sing Kumbaya up there and jump and say, we don't believe in gravity, but regardless of our belief system, what's inevitably going to happen is that we what?
Splat.
We splat. Regardless of a belief system.
Yeah.
And so the body's just innately designed to heal from the inside out. Right now, we're digesting food. We don't have to think about that. We have between 70 and 100 trillion cells inside of our body, and it's been reported that each one performs about 100 different chemical reactions. And so you think about that, your body's constantly recycling, it's constantly renewing. You get a new stomach lining every 3 to 6 months. You get a new set of red blood cells every 120 days. It's constantly moving towards what some would call homeostasis, but really it's the body's adaptation to its current environment. If we cut our leg, you cut our arms right now, the brain is going to send a signal down there to send blood clotting agents and send healing properties to that area. We didn't have to think about any of that happening because the body's constantly striving towards health and homeostasis. The real term there, the reason why I don't love the term homeostasis, it's really allostasis, which means the body's adaptation to its current environment. Because homeostasis, which means body getting into balance, but who's to say what that balance really is? Is it your temperature supposed to be 98.6? Well, what if yours is 99? Does that mean you have a fever all the time? No, it's your body's ability to adapt to its environment based off your internal physiology. It matters because then what happens, we go into a doctor's office or someone takes our blood pressure and it just happens to be 127/85, and now we freak out and want to get put on a pill. Well, some people's bodies are just slightly different, and that's why it's so important to know your body and know that about yourself.
A lot of times adaptations get disguised with the term of symptoms. Adaptations feel bad sometimes. Things like if I ate some bad food last night and it caused me to throw up, that's actually a good thing because my body is adapting to the fact that I had bad things in me and they needed to come out. If my body couldn't adapt to it, then I wouldn't throw up, so that would be a win, I guess. But
but then the poison would still be there.
All the poison would still be inside
right,
of
exactly.
me. Exactly.
It's a good thing. It's a smart thing.
Exactly. It's reframing the way that we think of symptoms, reframing the way that we think of what exactly is health and how are we actually healthy.
I think one of the most powerful things, and Dr. Wilson, in your description kind of just like the beauty in what I firmly believe is the creation of the body, and that's how you were going through like different cells in the body and how they turn over, and we have a brand new skeleton and we have a brand new gut lining and we have a brand new skin cells, and like everything in our body at some point becomes brand new. And I had my daughter, Emerson, she's 6, and she asked me this question. She said, Daddy, how old are our lungs? And so I was tempted for a second, because I wasn't focused on her question to say, well, you're 6 years old, so your lungs are 6 years old. That's inaccurate. Our lungs are between 0 and 8 months old. All the time. All of the time. And how is that? Because new cells are constantly being laid down. So doesn't that beg the question, how does chronic disease exist at all?
Right. Well, and that's why somebody who's a smoker, we know that someone who's a smoker who stops, it's almost like they have a new set of lungs if they do it early enough on, and you get an extended period of time of how long they've stopped. How did that happen?
Right.
No, I mean that non-smoker now didn't say lungs heal themselves. Like, no, they got a new set of lungs.
Yeah.
And so removing the interference.
They said lungs heal,
Right.
and then it healed.
Right.
Stop interfering.
Stop interfering. So if your lungs can do that, if your lungs can do that, then what else is happening inside the body without you even knowing about it? We have these, cells inside of our body. Their only job is to seek out, surround, and destroy cancer cells on a day in and day out basis. So knowing that that's their only job is to look for cancer, attack cancer, and then eat it up and destroy it. Well, geez, okay, so that system needs to be supported. Everything runs through the nervous system. I like your example of the morgue. You take a dead body, a fresh dead body. So picture that, laying right here.
Right there.
Right here. And I cut that
That takes me back to chiropractic school.
I always picture that.
Yeah.
So the anatomy lab with the smell, you can smell the formaldehyde.
Yeah.
Now
Too
we
soon.
know
that was
how,
different.
Now we know how
Too
toxic.
soon.
Bringing back the memories.
Yeah, that's too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too soon.
It's like, I'm glad I'm gone.
Well, if I cut that cadaver's leg, that leg's never gonna heal. It still had all the blood there. Maybe it's not involved yet. It's still all the blood there. Everything was there. So it's a fresh dead body, and yet that leg will never heal, but yours does. Why? It's because there's a living tissue. Your body is still working because the brain is still on. So when your brain stops, you stop. So if your brain, so one of my mentors used to say this: can you wiggle your toes? If the answer is yes, if you can wiggle your toes, that means your brain can see it. So wiggle your toes. That means your brain is still on. That means you can heal it. If your brain can see it, it can heal it. And that belief, that understanding is the most important, I would say, more than anything else, is a belief in your body's ability to heal and overcome. The minute someone loses that belief in the body's ability to overcome is the minute they lose the ability to overcome outside of a miracle. And even that, what you talk to pastors about this, you talk to people who are spiritual leaders, they'll say the same thing. That person's ability to heal is directly proportional to their belief. And so understanding that, it's so important. That's why when you talk about the 5 essentials, mindset, I would put at the very top when it comes to that.
So important.
Belief, understanding, and just also full buy-in to that philosophy and understanding of health. It's so important. We've got some other questions coming in, but I want to get to those who did their homework and submitted those ahead of time. So we want to honor loyalty here. So I want to ask this one to, it looks like, where is it? Oh, how important are the home care exercises? And this is a caveat. I must admit I fail at doing them. Dr. Alcorn, take it away.
Dr. Nick, what do you think I'm going to say?
I know exactly what you're going to say. That's why I directed to you.
Okay. Home care exercises are critical. We cannot overstate the importance of the home care exercise. Every single time that we get adjusted here in this office, present company included, it's a corrective adjustment. Why? For the purpose of removing as much of the interference in the spine, as much of the subluxation as possible, because we want that spine in the best possible condition before we go over to the vibration plate, just like Dr. Tracy was describing, so that we can reset our neurology in that position. Who lives on the vibration plate? Does anybody? Do you
No.
live on it all the time?
You mean like my house is built on the vibration plate? You don't build a house on shaky ground, brother.
That's a great point. It's not. Yeah, it's gonna fall, right? The vibration plate. If unless you're living on a vibration plate in a good posture like this, then you have to be doing home care. How else are you going to retrain your neurology?
That's right.
It's impossible to retrain. You've heard the term muscle memory. I don't like that term. It's nerve memory. What tells a muscle what to do? Just like what tells your heart what to do, what tells your lungs what to do, what tells your kidneys what to do, your nerve system tells your muscles what to do. It's nerve memory. You're creating nerve memory of that position because we are recognizing that there actually is a best position for the spine to be in. And we want to get as close to that as possible, because when we can retrain the spine to be in that position, now we know that we have the least amount of stress in the joints, which means they're going to have a longer life. And that means that we have the least amount of pressure on nerves, which means our brain is better connected to our body. And I think that's pretty tough to argue with.
Can't argue that one. Dr. Scott, are ball chairs the best for working at a desk?
I don't know that I would say the best. I think really what the question is active sitting versus passive sitting going to be better for you long term? I think in general we just sit way too much. Most people that I talk to sit down more than they stand during their day. We sit in our cars, we sit when we get to work. We don't necessarily get up and move around at work. Sometimes people will tell me, well, they'll take breaks and get up and move. We sit in our cars to go home, and then what do you do when you get home?
Sit down.
Sit on your couch because it's been a long day. You gotta sit again. So in general, I feel like we just sit too much. Oftentimes workstations aren't set up properly. But in general, I would say if you can find a way to actively sit, and so instead of being slouched down to where your body's being supported by the chair itself, if you can sit up to where you're having to actually support your body, I think that's going to be a better position for you in general. If that happens to be on like a Bosu ball or what was it called, a ball chair?
Ball chair.
Kind of like a wobble cushion. If you can put a wobble cushion on your chair, that's going to force you to sit more upright and be actively engaged. You're probably going to get more tired quickly because you're not used to actively sitting, but it's going to be the best scenario for you. So if you can actively sit, that's going to be best.
And we talked about this on the radio show that we recorded for this next weekend. You'll see this posted on the YouTube page here soon about if you do sit for a living or you drive long distances, so you're sitting, there's some things that you can do to counteract some of the negative effects of sitting for long periods of time. There's some real negative things that happen with sitting, because sitting is to our spine like sugar is to our teeth. We know that. So what do you do about it though? And there's some things that you can really do.
So, okay, let's take a look at our spine. Side view, this is how it should look. Person is facing this direction. 3 curves, curve in the neck, middle, and in the lower spine. When we are not active sitting, okay, so Dr. Scott, you kind of mentioned how do we sit? We kind of lean back in our chair a little bit. So what does that do to the lower spine down here? Bam. What just happened to the curve?
Flatten out.
Okay, and then in order to balance so we don't fall backwards out of our chair, and because of the computer that's in front of us, where does our head go?
Just go forward.
Forward. So what happens to our head? It goes forward. What happens to our neck curve?
Go straight.
This is what our spine looks like when we sit. Where did our 3 curves go?
One curve.
One big curve. That's the danger, because you start stretching the cord and you start training your spine to be in this position. Whether you want it to be this way or not, you are actively training your spine to be in whatever position you spend the most time in.
That's so good.
It's repetition, right?
It's exactly, it's nerve memory.
Nerve memory. Nerve memory, not muscle memory.
Right.
We need to all change our language on that. We had a couple questions about the practice. Will you be expanding the practice to different locations, and how has the pandemic affected the clinic economically? I'll speak to that directly. Will we be expanding? That's the vision, is to expand the practice and have multiple locations. And the vision is south, really to surround the city. That's the end goal, is to surround the city. And so yes, we are always looking at that and having a vision about that. COVID-19 did affect our practice economically. However, I would say that we're blessed to serve some of the best patients. I believe that Like we have a team and a team that's I think I would put our team up against any team in healthcare. I would, and I think because of that and because of the blessing that we have in the hand of God on our practice, that we didn't necessarily see a big economic hit on our practice. In fact, we weathered the storm really well, and because of these guys here and our awesome team behind the scenes, really were able to weather it well, and I would say even come out of it stronger on the other side. And that was really our prayer the entire time, was that we would come out stronger because of the whole thing. And so I'm just real proud of our team, real proud of our patients. And it speaks to the fact that our patients understand the immune system, the nervous system, understand the body, and also didn't buy into some of the other things that were happening and some of maybe the misconceptions about what was happening out there. And so we had really strong patients who came in all the way through, the pandemic, and I don't know a single one who was sick, and we serve a lot of people.
Several times, kind of throughout, and then here on the tail end of everything, did any of the people who have maintained their care, that have maintained their appointments, did any of them end up like getting sick? And I said the same thing. I can't think of a single person who continued to get adjusted, who did then end up getting sick. And I point that directly back to the nervous system's job of regulating and optimizing the immune system.
That's right. Well, and who should have been the sickest of the sickest? All the chiropractors. Honestly, we're like vectors of contagion, right? I mean, geez, we're just touching everyone. Let's be real here. In other states, we have really great friends in chiropractic, and still serve the people, and let's call them front line. They're on the front lines, touching the people. You can't glove a chiropractor. You're gonna not end up having. By the way, you're just gonna pass that from person to person anyway with the glove on.
You have to like switch gloves every time, right?
Every single time. And now we're polluting the earth with gloves. Just so you know. And so none of our chiropractic friends got sick, got COVID. They should have, by touching everyone. And so the reality is that the way you live matters. The way you take care of yourself makes a big difference. That you get adjusted, that you eat foods that are life-giving, that you minimize your exposure to toxins. You're not loading up on sugar, you're loading up on good quality supplements. These are all things that will help your immune system be stronger. It's not your immune system needs to be boosted, it needs to be optimized based off of your potential. There's a difference there. So when there's that understanding there, there's different outcomes when it comes to that. And so, we definitely saw some things happen in our practice when it came to COVID, but I really do feel like that we're stronger on the other side because of it.
I also think thank you, whoever asked that question. I appreciate it. I know we all appreciate the concern, because that's when I hear that question, that's all that I hear is like concern for the well-being of practice. That just goes straight back to, we serve the best patients. So thank you.
Another question is, how do I communicate chiropractic to others? And I love that question for the same reason you just said. Is I love that question because that means you're trying. That means you're trying. And welcome to the club, how hard it is. How hard it is to communicate. And so what I found is that trying to take person A from, let's just call it what it is, the average person out there who's not necessarily thinking about anatomy and physiology and all these things, and all of a sudden you come into their life because you're excited about it, and you want to take them from point A of they're living their life, they're watching TV, they're not necessarily caring for their spine or their nervous system, and then here you come in and introduce a new topic. And if you ever done this, I know when I first was introduced to chiropractic, I got super evangelistical about it, and wanted to tell everybody. But when I would start explaining anatomy and physiology, there would be like this glaze that would go over their eyes, and you just see this disconnect that would happen there, because most people aren't ready for that. So one of the best things I think to explain this to people is really to tell them your personal experience, and then let the doctor do the job of educating. So tell them about your personal experience. What have you found to be true about your care? What have you felt to be different about yourself? What have you noticed in your health and your life? Tell them about your personal story. And if you notice that they're starting to listen, then you can, and they start asking questions, then you can tell them and ask questions back to them. Well, did you know your brain controls everything in your body, and the bones actually surround and protect those nerves? But let it hang there. Let them want more and ask more questions. Have some curiosity there. So when you just pose the question of did you know, and then you tell them about the bones, they're going to ask more questions. So what does a chiropractor do? Well, he checks for the misalignments in the spine that cause nerve interference, and then with x-ray analysis, very specifically adjust those bones back into position to get pressure off of those nerves. They no longer fixate, they move well, there's no inflammation around the nerve site, so the body can function and heal at its absolute best. They're going to start asking more questions. But the more that you can get them to follow you instead of you just running them over with your excitement and your ideas and what you think needs to happen in their life, the less likely they are to really follow. But if you can actually tell them about your personal story and your personal experience, then you're going to have way more buy-in and way more influence on their life. The more excited you are about the results that you're getting and the more excited about the care that you're receiving, the more likely they are to ask more questions.
Yeah, I think that us being positioned here in Max Living provides a massive advantage over maybe a chiropractor maybe down the street, or more of like pain-based care, because really then it just becomes the question about, am I in pain or not? And a person's going to seek to fulfill that need based on how much they value that. But being positioned in Max Living, one of my favorite things to do is I just go all 5 essentials on them. You know, I mean, like, it's because it's really not about chiropractic at that point. That maybe is how we tend to compartmentalize that thought, is that like this is chiropractic, but Max Living is not chiropractic. Max Living is 5 essentials. That is such a huge distinction and such a huge advantage when it comes to describing. Because imagine somebody asks you, hey, why should I have chiropractic care? Or you want to tell them about chiropractic care, and then all of a sudden I started asking you questions about toxins. I started asking you questions about nutrition, and I started asking you questions about exercise, and maybe I like go into mindset a little bit, and before long they're like, wait, what are we talking about again? And now they're curious. Now they're kind of like, this is kind of interesting. So to me it's a huge advantage.
So it sounds to me that it's more about optimization and reaching the best version of yourself.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great way to say that.
I love that the 5 essentials are like stackable. Like you're never going to be perfect in all of them. So you kind of go in and out of seasons in your life where you're like focusing more on improving your mindset, putting growth there, doubling down on your chiropractic care, doing your spinal care exercises. At least that's kind of the way I operate. I take an inventory, I guess, of my life and really try to focus on one essential and improving in that area. And the crazy thing is that when you invest in your health, your intentions, you elevate all the areas. Because when I'm more intentional about doing my spinal care, I'm also more conscious of what I'm putting in my body. It all elevates.
It's true. It happens every time.
Yeah. So that's why the 5 essentials. It's a great package.
Okay, so I want to ask this question that we got, because I think this is going to lead into some things that I think are really important to talk about. The question is, are the home exercises recommended even after our treatments are done?
Can I add to that?
Interesting.
And
how-
Tasha's adding.
And as a patient that's been here for a while, how long should they get adjusted, or how often?
Yes, and that was going to lead me into that question is, and why should I be getting adjusted for the rest of my life? Okay, so this is a question that I think is a misconception out there outside of this bubble. Let's call this a bubble. Because you'll hear this question is that, once I get adjusted, doc, does that mean I have to do it for the rest of my life? I've heard that before.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
Does that mean I have to do it before?
Yeah.
So straight from the horse's mouth, I want you to hear it from us. Just because you start getting adjusted doesn't mean you have to for the rest of your life. Just like, when you first start exercising, you don't have to keep doing that for the rest of your life.
No.
When you first start brushing your teeth, you don't have to keep on doing that for the rest of your life. the better question is it a good idea, and are there health outcomes that I could expect to achieve because I take care of myself differently? That's a very different question. I was a personal trainer, and I have somebody working out 3 to 4 times a week, let's say, doing a specific regimen. I never really got that question. Once I lose 100 pounds, does that mean I'm going to have to keep doing this forever? I never got that question. It's like, well, once you start achieving the outcomes that you're going for, most people, they want to maintain doing the things that got them there in the first place.
Right. Why would you stop doing the things that created the success that you originally wanted?
Yeah, same thing with brushing your teeth. Could you brush your teeth for, let's say, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, stop brushing your teeth, and then expect no gingivitis, no cavities, no, you're going to have oral hygiene problems because you stop doing that. And we just talked about this, is that there's only, 30% of people who actually floss their teeth on a regular basis, 30%. Well, does that mean people just don't know to floss their teeth? No, people probably know to floss their teeth, but there's a difference between knowing and doing. And so because we know that difference between knowing and doing, there's going to be people, we understand, that just don't do the things necessary to get healthy. But should we point them in the right direction and tell them what we do, what our families do, what our best recommendations for our patients do? Of course we should. Your family are all getting adjusted, my family, on a regular basis. And when have they scheduled their last appointment on the schedule? How many times do they stop at the front desk and ask, hey, when's my last appointment on the schedule? They don't ask that. It's not because it's free. All of us paid for care at one time. It's not because it's free. It's because they see the value and know the value of taking care of their spine and nervous system for the rest of their life. In fact, when it is free for people, guess what happens?
Less important.
Less important. They don't value the thing that is just given to them. And so there's an understanding there, is that when you take care of your spine and nervous system, it should be a lifelong endeavor. Just like exercise, just like brushing your teeth, just like doing your home exercises should be a lifelong endeavor. Now, the home exercises correlate specifically with your spinal angles, and it matches with the adjustment. So it works synergistically with the adjustment. So that's something that's really important to remember, is that it's not, I'm not getting adjusted, so I'll just do my home exercises, or I'm not doing my home exercise, so I'll just get adjusted. Mm-hmm. No, they work synergistically together. And when you have those two components and you really commit yourself to doing them, well, then you get the best outcomes. I think that's what we're all going for. Absolutely. Now, how many of us, are you perfect? No, we're not. No, we're not perfect when it comes to this.
I'm Dr. Alcorn, and I'm not perfect.
Newsflash. So just understanding this, but just to close this, just to respect your time, because it is now that time, and we promised that this would be at an hour. And by the way, there are questions. And we've got more to cover, which means we have to what? Do this again.
Yeah.
Right, so we're gonna do this
Take
again.
2.
So if you want more, hey, post your questions, even if it's not during the live feed, you're watching this later. Hey, post your questions here. This would be a good outlet to ask these questions, and we can cover them in the next Ask Me Anything. But I liked what you said about this is a wraparound system, and we call it a health delivery system. The 5 essentials really are. It's a wraparound 5 essential health delivery system. And so when you understand that the body's designed innately to heal from the inside out, that it doesn't need help, it just needs no interference, and then you commit to doing the things necessary to get yourself healthy, and you start analyzing, hey, what does my spine and nervous system look like? What are the nutrients that I'm putting into my body? And you do the inventory on your life, and you're looking at, hey, what does my daily exercise look like? Am I sweating? Am I breathing hard? Am I being exposed to toxins or not? And you take that inventory on your life, well, then you're going to start to make changes in your body. Your cells start to replicate differently, and people are going to start asking you questions. Like, what are you doing differently? How come you don't go to the normal doctors, right? How come you don't go to the doctors who prescribe medicine? You go to different ones. And they start asking you these types of questions. Well, then you can confidently be the cause of change in their lives when you start explaining what you're doing. And then you see that happen in the next person's life. And then their circle of influence changes. And it's incredible to see the difference between someone who's bold and someone who's not. So my encouragement to you is be bold, because yes, this is different. Yes, this is very different when it comes to health in America, but maybe in health in America really should look different. And maybe you're just a trailblazer when it comes to this. So be confident, be bold, share this message with people, because people deserve to hear this. And most people that we meet with, they don't want to be on drugs. They don't want to be scheduled for a surgery. They don't want to go that route, but many people think that's their only option. It's not their only option. So speak up, be bold, share this message. And we do have a Father's Day It's called a Patient Appreciation Week, where we are actually doing a discount on the new patient examination. So if you know someone who needs our help, just give us a call, post below, we'll see the message, and then what you do is, because it's a discount during that week, it's really easy just to make that an opportunity to get them checked, analyzed for spine and nervous system problems, and really start the process of getting healthy. So that's all we've got for you tonight. Really appreciate you guys bringing it tonight.
This was fun.
Yeah,
this
it
was
was
fun.
super
Let's
fun.
do it again.
Mhm.
All right, guys. See you next time.
Have a good night.
Bye, guys.